The Human Rights Arts and Film Festival is an annual platform for artists, human rights organisations and the public to present and discuss measures towards social change. It draws together films, forums, music and other art forms to encourage education and advance debate about global and local human rights issues. This year, Sarah Catherine Firth's animated documentary Unity in Diversity will feature as part of the Australian Shorts segment. She's joining us now to chat about the film and how to portray human rights issues in the voices of children. Sarah, thanks for joining us.
Hello, how are you going?
Really well, thank you. Now, I'm hoping you could give us a quick introduction to your film to begin with.
Where to start? The film actually came out of a year-long artist in residency out in Springvale, which is actually one of the most multiculturally diverse towns in all of Australia, with something like 197 different ethnic minorities. So I went out there last year and did a residency with school groups from prep to year 5 and 6. And we also did a few workshops with adult refugees and recent migrants. And I just found, I was doing comic workshops with the kids and the adults to talk about human rights stories and their experience of migration. And I just found, particularly with the children, I was really interested in how children's voices aren't usually represented when it comes to talking about human rights and migration and just sort of difficulties that people have with integration. And because of that, I decided, it would be really fantastic to do a documentary with kids talking about basically cultural issues. So that's how it started.
And it sounds like it was quite a multi-tiered process, not a typical documentary format, I suppose.
No, I guess the documentary came off the end of a very kind of very considered and in-depth cultural diversity project with the Dandenong Council. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so the Dandenong Council are really passionate about, I guess, having really authentic conversations about what does and doesn't work for people coming to Australia for the first time, and then what are the lingering issues that people face, but also, celebrating the successes. They have, done this for years, and the face-to-face project that I was part of was in its third year. And so we had a very supportive team of people in the council, policymakers. We also had, a really amazing team of educators and teachers on board. And so without all of those people kind of really working together with the community, it would be a very different documentary, I guess.
Now, you've mentioned issues such as multiculturalism and the experiences of first arriving in Australia for young people.
Yeah.
Something that I found really clever about the tone of the film is that it does come across as quite lighthearted, and it shows some sort of varied and comical sensibilities of the children, but it does actually broach some really serious issues. What themes did tend to emerge?
I spent a very long time thinking, what am I trying to say with this film, which is usually what you do with a documentary. It's like, what is your statement? But I actually realised that would get in the way of me having really just authentic conversations with the kids. So I actually just kind of tried to step back and just really let them talk about what they wanted to talk about. And because of that, you really get the child's perspective, which is, that the world's amazing and there's so much stuff and there's so many things that they don't understand, but there's also so many cultural stereotypes and things that they find quite confronting and difficult that they pick up on. And a lot of that, I think, is quite, subliminal for them. And a lot of the racism as well, they don't necessarily believe it themselves, but they pick it up from the media and from what they see people do on the street and what their parents might say and this kind of thing. So they're kind of, I think they're much more sensitive to a lot of what's floating out there than adults might be. And that gives a really interesting discussion with the children. It
does certainly read, I suppose, as quite an authentic conversation with children and their honest opinions.
Yeah.
And it's quite true that I suppose that children are often the victims of human rights abuses, and certainly some of the children shared some quite, I guess, alarming insights into experience that they'd had in before they arrived in Australia. What would you consider the importance to giving children more of a voice as subjects?
I really think that children are very sensitive, and that, with the work that I did, there were some children who did come from very, very difficult backgrounds where they'd lost their parents and their family in wars and had, gone through very unpleasant situations. And I was actually surprised because I've never been through major trauma like that. I had this, misconception that for someone to go through that, they would be quite traumatized. And I found it quite interesting that some of the children who'd been through that, they actually seemed pretty okay, and I don't know if that will affect them later. I don't know, but there were some that were, very upset by that, and I guess coming here, it's very important that they can talk about that stuff if they want to. And I think that if you don't feel supported and if you're not able to talk, then they can turn into ghosts, I guess, and I think it's very important to make a stand for the kids and say that if someone does that to you and your family, it's not okay, and it's okay to feel terrible about it, and that there are people listening and there are people that support you, and people know that that's wrong, and we're going to work together to make sure that that doesn't sort of happen to other people, and just having that support and that listening and just giving them a space to talk if they want to, I think is really important in the healing process, and just also really understanding what it's like to go through those sorts of things.
It's quite a delicate process creating a space for that type of dialogue.
It is, because, some people just don't want to talk about it, and also the kids, like some of them just sort of keep rolling along, and I don't know if the real difficulty of what they've been through will hit them until they're a bit older. But it's just important for them to feel supported, whether they, take it up or not.
Now, you'll be holding workshops as part of your fellowship with the Immigration Museum. Could you briefly give us a quick rundown of that?
Yeah, so out of doing this documentary, I got offered a fellowship at the Immigration Museum to come in and do comic drawing workshops with school groups from all around Melbourne. And I'm working with fellow comic artists and children's book illustrators, Don Tan, Adi Firth, Mandy Ord and Bernard Calais. And we're teaching the children about storytelling and story writing around issues to do with cultural difference, diversity, and just challenging race-based discrimination, and introducing them to kind of basic human rights and principles for pride and self-worth. And that's going on through all of May, and we're going to be doing an online exhibition of all of their comics that they do. Yeah.
Great.
So, pretty exciting.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
You can catch those workshops, or you can watch Sarah's film as a part of the Human Rights Arts and Film Festival coming up. For further information, visit hraff.org.au. Thank you, Sarah.